Charlie's Angels may have dazzled the world with glamour, crime-fighting flair, and unforgettable charm, but behind the scenes, many of its beloved stars faced heartbreaking turns their fans never saw coming. In this emotional deep dive, we uncover the tragic fates, shocking accidents, and personal battles that shaped the lives of the iconic cast. From glittering fame to quiet despair, discover where they are now in 2025, and how life after the spotlight wasn't always kind to these angels. Farrah Fawcett, who portrayed Jill Monroe in Charlie's Angels, was 29 years old when she took on the role of the athletic and radiant California-born private investigator. Jill's beauty was matched by her intelligence and resolve, and Farrah made the character iconic with her free-spirited charm and unforgettable feathered hair. Off-screen, however, her life was marked by turbulence. She married actor Lee Majors in 1973, but their demanding careers strained the marriage, leading to a divorce in 1982. Her long-term relationship with actor Ryan O'Neal was passionate but stormy, plagued by infidelity and addiction. They had one son, Redmond, whose struggles with substance abuse and legal issues brought Farrah profound heartbreak. Diagnosed with anal cancer in 2006, Farrah spent her final years fighting the disease publicly, even documenting her ordeal in the Emmy-nominated documentary Farrah's Story. Her father died months before her diagnosis, and she became estranged from several close friends during her illness. Despite her fame, she often expressed feelings of loneliness and longing for a stable family. Farrah passed away on June 25, 2009, at the age of 62. Her estate, once worth an estimated $20 million, had dwindled due to legal battles, medical expenses, and support for her son, and was valued at roughly $5 million at the time of her death. David Doyle, who played the affable and dependable John Bosley, was 46 years old when he joined Charlie's Angels as the Angels' ever-present liaison. With a mix of humor and tenderness, Bosley served as a father figure, and Doyle brought to the role a grounding warmth that balanced the glamour and danger surrounding the Angels. Behind his cheerful demeanor, Doyle faced a life of quiet tragedy. He lost his first wife, Rachel, in a car accident in the 1960s, a loss that haunted him. He remarried Nathan in 1969, and they had a daughter named Leah, but the pressures of fame and his battle with alcoholism strained the marriage for years. Though he eventually found sobriety, David struggled with feelings of guilt and grief. His relationship with his brother, actor James Doyle, was distant, and he often expressed regret over their estrangement. In his final years, he suffered from heart complications and withdrew from the public eye. Despite a prolific voice acting career post-Angels, he never found the same success again. He passed away on February 26, 1997, from a heart attack at the age of 67. At the time of his death, his estate was estimated at $1.5 million, much of which was quietly left to his daughter and a small animal rescue organization he supported. Tanya Roberts, who portrayed street-smart Julie Rogers in the final season of Charlie's Angels, was 31 years old when she stepped into the role. Julie, a former model with a troubled past, brought grit and toughness to the trio, and Tanya embodied her with unpolished charm. Yet Tanya's real life mirrored the chaos of her character's backstory. She married Barry Roberts in 1974, and though they stayed together until his death in 2006, their marriage was often described as distant and unconventional. They lived in separate wings of their home for years. They had no children, a regret Tanya occasionally expressed in interviews. Her post-Angels career stalled despite starring in cult favorites like The Beastmaster and A View to a Kill. Tanya became increasingly reclusive and struggled with financial instability and depression. She was deeply affected by the deaths of several close friends, and was reportedly estranged from much of her extended family. In late 2020, she collapsed at home and was hospitalized. After a media mix-up prematurely announced her death, she passed away for real on January 4, 2021, at the age of 71 due to complications from a urinary tract infection that had spread. Her estate, diminished by years of inconsistent work and medical expenses, was estimated at $800,000. John Forsyth, the voice behind the elusive Charles Townsend, was 58 years old when he first lent his rich, commanding voice to the unseen boss of the Angels. Though never seen on screen, his presence was magnetic, charming, fatherly, and mysterious. Forsyth, however, carried with him the weight of a complicated personal life. He married 3 times, first to Parker McCormick, with whom he had a son, Doll, and 2 daughters. The marriage ended in divorce due to his infidelities and long absences. His second marriage to Julie Warren lasted decades, but her declining health and eventual death in 1994 deeply affected him. He later remarried Nicole Carter, though friends described their relationship as strained in his final years. He endured the early deaths of close colleagues, battled colon cancer, and faced painful lawsuits over estate disputes among his children. Though he found renewed fame on Dynasty, Forsyth often felt overshadowed by his co-stars. He passed away on April 1, 2010, at the age of 92 from complications of pneumonia. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at $10 million, though much of it was later consumed by family legal battles and taxes. Sammy Davis Jr., though more widely known for his legendary career in entertainment than for any direct involvement with Charlie's Angels, was a dynamic guest star whose charisma lit up any set. Born in 1925, he was already a seasoned performer by the time he appeared in a cameo alongside the Angels. At 34 in 1960, he had already battled immense adversity. A black Jewish entertainer in a racially divided America, Davis suffered discrimination both within and outside Hollywood. His marriage to Swedish actress May Britt in 1960, an interracial union, sparked outrage and led to death threats. They had 1 daughter, Tracy, and adopted 2 sons, Mark and Jeff, but the family fractured under the weight of Sammy's substance abuse and relentless touring schedule. His addictions to alcohol and cocaine damaged his relationships and health. A car crash in 1954 cost him his left eye, and later in life, he lost his fortune to bad investments and the IRS, ending up nearly penniless. Diagnosed with throat cancer in 1989, he refused surgery that would cost him his voice. Sammy Davis Jr. died on May 16, 1990, at age 64, leaving behind a complex legacy and an estate estimated at only $500,000, much of it consumed by debts. Dean Martin, who portrayed private investigator Joe Sweeney in the 1970 Charlie's Angels pilot that was never picked up, was 43 years old in 1960, still in the midst of his Rat Pack fame. Suave and effortlessly charming, Martin's character was imagined as a smooth-talking, whiskey-loving mentor to the Angels, mirroring his real-life persona. Yet behind the twinkle in his eye was a man quietly burdened. He married 3 times, first to Betty McDonald, with whom he had 4 children, all of whom struggled with addiction and mental health issues. Their son Dean Paul tragically died in a 1987 plane crash. His second marriage to Jean Beager lasted 2 decades but ended in 1973 due to his infidelity and emotional distance. His final marriage to Catherine Hahn was short-lived. Dean drifted into seclusion after his son's death, numbing his grief with alcohol and television reruns. Professionally, he withdrew from the limelight, refusing interviews and cutting off longtime friends. He died on Christmas Day in 1995 from respiratory failure due to emphysema. Despite the glamour, Martin's later years were steeped in sorrow and isolation. His estate was estimated at $30 million, though much of it was distributed among his children and charities he quietly supported. Ida Lupino, who played Dr. Karen Peterson in a 1969 episode of Charlie's Angels, was 51 when she brought gravitas and intellect to the role, a cool-headed forensic psychiatrist advising the Angels. A trailblazer behind and in front of the camera, Lupino was one of the few female directors in Hollywood's golden age. But her personal life was riddled with despair. She was married 3 times, most notably to actor Howard Duff, with whom she had a daughter, Bridget. Their marriage was tumultuous, marred by infidelity, alcoholism, and intense professional jealousy. Though brilliant, Lupino was often ostracized by male peers in Hollywood, leading to chronic depression and drinking. Her daughter distanced herself, citing years of emotional volatility. Lupino suffered several nervous breakdowns in the 1970s and faded into obscurity. Financial troubles plagued her final years, forcing her to sell her home and rely on Screen Actors Guild pensions. She passed away in 1995 from a stroke, aged 77, in a small studio apartment. Her estate, diminished by years of neglect and debt, was valued at under $200,000. Dick Sargent, who briefly portrayed Alan, an intelligence liaison working with the Angels, in a 1969 episode, was 39 at the time and best known for stepping into the role of Darren Stevens on Bewitched. His Alan was affable, steady, and quietly supportive, a reflection of Sargent's own gentle demeanor. But his life beyond the screen was fraught with pain. A closeted gay man during his peak career years, Sargent battled profound loneliness and shame. He never married but had a long-term partner, Albert Williams, who died of a cerebral hemorrhage in 1986. Sargent's family largely rejected his sexuality, compounding his internal anguish. He adopted no children but remained active in LGBTQ+ rights later in life, publicly coming out in 1991. Diagnosed with prostate cancer, he declined rapidly, dying in 1994 at 64. His last years were filled with physical agony and emotional release as he finally lived openly. Though never wealthy by Hollywood standards, his estate was modestly valued at $500,000. He left much to AIDS research charities and his few remaining close friends. Scatman Crothers, who played Blackie, the Angels' streetwise informant with a raspy voice and a love for jazz, was 59 when he took on the role in 1969. Crothers infused Blackie with soulful warmth, a beacon of heart in an often cold investigation world. Off-screen, however, Crothers endured tremendous hardship. Married to Helen Sullivan since the 1930s, their union was loving but strained by long absences and financial pressures. They had one daughter, Helen Jr., who struggled with bipolar disorder and died by suicide in 1978, a loss from which Scatman never fully recovered. Racial discrimination plagued much of his career, forcing him into typecast roles despite his talents. He battled loneliness, industry exclusion, and declining health. Diagnosed with lung cancer in the mid-80s, he continued working through pain until he collapsed during a recording session in 1986. He passed away later that year at 76. Though beloved by colleagues, he died relatively poor, with an estate worth only $100,000, most of which went to medical bills and funeral costs. Howard Duff, who portrayed Vincent Blair, a smooth-talking, morally ambiguous businessman tied to the Angels' investigation, was 56 in 1969. His performance as Blair was layered, part ally, part threat. In life, Duff mirrored those complexities. He married Ida Lupino in 1951, and their collaboration both on-screen and off proved explosive. Though they had one daughter, the marriage was full of arguments, affairs, and creative rivalries, ending in divorce in 1984. Their daughter became estranged after years of witnessing domestic chaos. Duff struggled with alcoholism, often showing up drunk on sets, and found roles dwindling as he aged. Friends described him as haunted by regrets, missed chances, burned bridges, and a gnawing sense of having never fulfilled his potential. Diagnosed with heart disease in the late 1980s, Duff suffered multiple strokes and spent his final years in a nursing home, isolated and confused. He died in 1990 at 76, largely forgotten by the industry he once helped define. His estate was estimated at $300,000, with the majority left to a caretaker who remained by his side when others didn't. Jerome Tate, portrayed by Cesare Denova at age 43 in Charlie's Angels in 1969, was the epitome of European charm, polished, enigmatic, and dangerously alluring. Known for his sophistication, Tate navigated high society with ease while hiding shady connections beneath the surface. Denova, once a rising star in both Italian and Hollywood cinema, saw his career falter after the 1970s, struggling with typecasting and diminishing roles. His personal life mirrored this downturn. He married actress Patricia DiCio, but the union collapsed under infidelity rumors and clashing egos. They had 2 sons, Marco and Antonio, whom he saw sporadically due to long work stints and eventual estrangement. Denova suffered 5 major life setbacks: career stagnation, a bitter divorce, a house fire that destroyed years of memorabilia, bankruptcy in the late 80s, and chronic heart problems that left him weakened. By the time of his death in 1992 at age 66 from a heart attack, he was living modestly in a small Los Angeles apartment. Once surrounded by wealth, he left behind an estate estimated at only $150,000, mostly from residuals and a few remaining assets. He was remembered for the elegance he brought to every frame, even as the lights dimmed in his final act. Harry Stearns, brought to life by Herb Edelman at 36 in Charlie's Angels, 1969, was the loyal, sharp-tongued confidant who balanced tension with levity. Edelman's dry humor and warm demeanor endeared him to audiences, but off-screen, his life was strewn with heartbreak. Though married briefly to actress Lee Sorrell, the relationship unraveled due to Edelman's workaholic nature and long bouts of depression. They had no children, though Edelman often lamented his solitude. After his divorce, he struggled with alcoholism and battled type 2 diabetes, which would later complicate his health. Professionally, despite memorable appearances in the Golden Girls and stage plays, he found himself sidelined in the 90s by changing industry tastes. He endured a lonely existence in his final years, grappling with chronic illness, financial strain, the suicide of a close friend, and the sudden loss of his brother. Herb Edelman died of emphysema in 1996 at age 62. His estate, reduced by mounting medical bills, was valued at approximately $300,000. Though he departed quietly, his legacy lives on through his impeccable timing and every scene he illuminated. Jericho, played by Joseph Ruskin in 1960 at the age of 36, was a figure cloaked in both literal and emotional shadow, a man of hidden agendas, calculating intelligence, and solemn charisma. Ruskin's piercing stare and commanding voice lent the character an eerie gravitas. Despite a steady career filled with character roles in television and film, he never achieved leading man status, something that haunted him quietly. His marriage to actress Faye Baker collapsed after years of emotional distance and professional envy. They had one daughter, Ellen, whom he saw infrequently due to a grueling shooting schedule and a bitter custody battle. Ruskin endured 5 major personal tragedies: the suicide of a close friend, a car accident that left him temporarily disabled, a devastating house robbery, estrangement from Ellen during her teenage years, and early-onset Parkinson's symptoms in the late 90s. Though he later remarried, the relationship was one of necessity rather than affection. When he passed in 2013 at age 89 from natural causes, he had been living in quiet seclusion. His estate, mostly accrued through SAG residuals and modest real estate, was estimated at $500,000. He remains respected for the quiet intensity he brought to roles others would overlook. Andy Price, portrayed by Michael Whitney at 38 in Charlie's Angels, 1969, radiated rugged masculinity, the kind born from backroads and broken promises. As a stoic Western archetype, he embodied justice with fists and grit. Whitney's acting career, though once promising, dwindled after the early 70s as he struggled with being typecast. Behind the scenes, his life was marred by turmoil. He married famed singer Twiggy in a high-profile union, but the relationship crumbled within years due to his volatile temper and growing dependency on alcohol. They had one daughter, Carly, whom he barely saw after the split. Whitney experienced 5 major life setbacks: a debilitating injury during a stunt, being blacklisted after an on-set altercation, a DUI that led to brief jail time, bankruptcy in 1981, and a failed suicide attempt that left him emotionally scarred. He died of a heart attack in 1983 at age 52, alone and financially destitute. Once admired for his strength, he died in obscurity with an estate valued at less than $50,000. His story is remembered as a cautionary tale, a star dimmed too soon by personal demons and industry indifference. Arthur Evans, played by Edward Winter at 39 in 1970's IXS Charlie's Angels, was a cold and cerebral figure whose calm demeanor masked ruthless ambition. Winter, best known as the fanatical Colonel Flagg in MASH*, was a master of portraying tightly wound characters on the brink. Off-screen, however, he was a man plagued by insecurities and profound loneliness. Married briefly to theater actress Linda Foster, the union dissolved due to his long bouts of emotional withdrawal and career obsession. They had one son, Caleb, whom Winter barely knew. His life unraveled through 5 notable tragedies: a public nervous breakdown during a failed stage revival, the death of both parents within a year, the accidental death of a beloved pet that triggered years of depression, the diagnosis of Parkinson's in 1998, and estrangement from his only child. As roles dried up in the 90s, Winter faded into near anonymity. He passed away in 2001 at the age of 63 from complications of Parkinson's. Though mostly forgotten by the time of his death, his estate was valued at around $400,000, saved through prudent investments. His final years were quiet, marked by solitude, missed connections, and the silence of a phone that rarely rang. Which character from Charlie's Angels holds a special place in your heart? How does it make you feel knowing that some of the beloved cast members are no longer with us? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. If you've been enjoying this content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching.